In this video, I'm going to show you how to calculate the equivalent unit calculation using the weighted average method. So here we have our data. We are going to have the units. This is given the percent completed for materials and the percent completed for conversion. Remember, conversion includes what takes the direct materials and converts those to finished goods. So it includes your factory overhead and your direct labor. So we have our work in process for May 1st, and we are calculating this for a particular department. This is Department A. Then we have units started into production in May. So this is the units produced for the month of May in Department A. Then we have units completed and transferred out of Department A during June. So these are the units that we have moved out. And then we have work in process for June 30th. So if you notice here, we're talking about in terms of units here. So we need these units because we're going to use those to apply out the dollar amount. So in financial accounting, we need dollar amounts, and we're going to use units and equivalent units to apply that to your dollar amount so we can calculate the dollar amount that's still in our department and the dollar amount, which is the WIP, and the stuff that has been completed and has been transferred out. And we're going to calculate that with the use of units. And when we consider the units, we have the total units accounted for, but we have to take into account the units that are partially completed. So when we think about partially completed, there's two ways we can consider the partially completed units. And one is the materials. Are they partially completed with the material involved? And then two, conversion. Are they partially completed in terms of conversion? Now you might be thinking there's three things involved in inventory: materials, direct labor, and the overhead. But we only have two here because conversion includes two components: the direct labor and the overhead. So we have the units of 100, and we have a percentage in regard with the materials, and we also have a percentage in, sorry, I got distracted. We also have the percentage in regard to the conversion. So the amount completed for the materials and for the conversion is always going to be either equal to this or less than this. It will never be more than this for the units completed, because we only have 100 units. So if you calculate the materials and you get more than 100 here, then you made a mistake. So we're going to do the same thing for the ending work in process, but we have 510 units started in production, and we already had 100. So that would be 610 total units that we had in production, and we transferred 450 out. So think about it, 610 that we worked on, 450 we transferred out. That means we have 160 units we're still working on. So the 160 is the amount that we have in there at the end of the month for the time period of, this should be, I think ours was supposed to be May, so I need to fix that. So for the month of May, that's what's still in there at the end of the month, or the end of the time period. Ours is the month of May. So we have 160 units that are 80% complete with regard to materials and 40% complete with regard to conversion. So now we're ready to compute the equivalent units of production. So we're going to start with what we've completed and transferred out during the month of June. So if you look up here, you completed and transferred out 450 units. So this one is easy. So you just put 450 down because they're completely done and they were transferred out. Notice that we're not going to break out or break down the work in process for the beginning, okay? This is because we are using the weighted average method. We're kind of averaging out the beginning and the ending. So really doing this way, there are less calculations to do. When you do the first in, first out method, it's going to be a little bit more difficult. But it may be easier to understand because we would be doing the first in, first out flow of inventory, which is easier to visually see. But in this case, we're kind of netting out or averaging out the beginning and the ending work in process. Okay, and then we're going to take the work in process. So you start with the units completed and transferred out. That's the easy part. Then take the ending work in process, which is the 160, and multiply it by the 80%, which is 0.8. And that is your work in process for May 30th. So how did we get the 80% and 40%? Well, it was given to you in your problem, but in reality, we would have to actually go and look at the materials for our product and see what percent. We would have to come up with that percent for that and for labor and for overhead by looking at how far the product has come or the unit. So we would look at this and see and give our best estimate in the industry that we're in. So this could be or is an estimate. Okay, so now we're going to take our work in process for our units and look at our conversion percentage. So take the 160 and you're going to multiply it by the 40%, and so 64 units for the conversion work in process. And then we're just going to, we're going to add that together. Okay. And that is our material equivalent units of production in Department A during May. And for conversion, I don't know how I just did that. Yes. No, I do not. That needs to be, that's right. Okay, over here we're going to sum up our conversion units, and we're going to get 514 for conversion equivalent units of production. So you may have to memorize this part here. Just know that, hey, I'm only going to use the units I've transferred out, and I'm only going to use my ending work in process. Okay, and it's really good to kind of get in practice of organizing your information into a table, because that will really help if you kind of set it up the same way each time when you're working this, and remind yourself what you're doing. I am trying to get, first I've got to get the equivalent units, and then I can get the cost. Okay, so in the next video I'm going to show you how to do the cost.